welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerrica.
And I'm Leah, and I'm on the wrong book. So let me just exit
Right
this,
before we started, Leah says, I don't remember anything about these books. Great,
No.
let's start.
Great, let's start. This is what happens. I'm on like 72 books so far this year, so it gets a bit much. But we read These Hollow Vows and These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. And the reason why we read these books were because they were like Cruel Prince meets Court of Thorns and Roses. And you're like Court of Thorns and Roses, fantastic. And I'm like Cruel Prince, I'm there for that, you know,
right?
like fantastic.
Could you imagine a book at like both of our favorite stories blended into one?
But you know what? And this was so interesting because this happened on TikTok. I found this on TikTok just this week, and it basically said the reason why people get disappointed by book talks, or particularly fantasy romance, is because they are mislabeled with genre. So there's two genres. There's fantasy romance, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, where the romance is the main part of the story, but it's a fantasy book.
Yeah.
And then you have romantic fantasy, where it's like Cruel Prince is a romantic fantasy, where the plot is character driven. There's like an actual real, like Cruel Prince is about Jude's journey to power, essentially, and it's about her finding her place in the society. It's about rules and bureaucracy and power struggles and authority and all of this.
Is that also a YA book?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the romance part, it's there, but it's not like the main part of the plot. It's kind of a subplot, whereas in A Court of Thorns and Roses, the romance is like the main plot, and all the other stuff, like her becoming the most awesome of all awesome with the cauldron and all of this shit, that's kind of like the subplot to the romance, because the romance is like the main thing in this
Definitely in the first book.
Yeah, but in the other ones too, it's all about
their in the second book, there was no romance until the very end. But I know what you mean. You mean. It was like about the relationship. But then in Court of Thorns and Roses, it's an NA book, so it's like much sexier than Cruel Prince.
For sure, but I think it's still like it makes a difference when we talk about these books that we label them in the right genre. Because if I'm going to go into like a romance book, but it's a romantic fantasy, and I'm not going to get that romance, I'm not going to, you know,
it's not what you
it's not
had
like the
expected.
actual, then I might feel disappointed by this book. And it happens a lot, I think, because it happened to you where you read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and then I'm like, oh, if you like this, you'll love Cruel Prince, and then you don't, because you expect it to be like a fantasy romance, but it's a romantic fantasy. So I found that to be really interesting, and they had a couple of books that they were doing, and A Court of Thorns and Roses and Cruel Prince were like the top examples.
What about Bridge Kingdom? Where's that?
That would be, I think it's God, that one's hard, because there is very much a plot, but I think the romance is still the main part of that. So it's probably a fantasy romance. Yeah, actually. But we read this, and what would you label this one? These Hollow Vows.
Oh, that's actually tricky, because no, it's definitely going to be in the Cruel Prince era. It's a romantic fantasy.
I would say book 1 is a romantic fantasy. Book 2 is a fantasy romance.
Because but it's still very much about her.
Yeah, but...
And the romance is aside. But I mean, the romance sort of also takes over the plot in the second book.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that it shifts the genres almost.
You're right.
So
that's tricky.
That is tricky. So we read both of these books, like, right after each other. And
we listened to them, and I have to say, you know how picky I am with narration? I love these narrators so much. Like, I'm happy to have them in my ear every single day. They could read all of the books.
Yeah. I don't remember the narration at all. So,
but that means that it didn't bother you.
But it was just one person. It was Casey Holloway. There was one person who narrated the whole thing. It wasn't a male and a female narrator. No.
That's how good she was at the narration.
So basically, in this book, we follow Bree. Yeah. Or Abriella.
Cool name. Okay.
Okay. And she lives in this... I love these kind of border towns. Like, this is very Holly Black, the darkest part of the forest, where you live in a town that's like right on the edge of fairy. And I love these, like, where you're close to the entry, and then you might get like fall through, or you might get taken or whatever. Like, I kind of like the...
That's in A Court of Thorns and Roses too. Pharaoh was on this border town.
Yeah. And I love that so much. But I mean, have you read The Darkest Part of the Forest yet?
No.
Because that one's fantastic. It's about this fairy prince who sleeps in a glass coffin in the woods, and all the kids in the town just party on him. Like, this is like the drinking spot. And then one day he's gone.
Oh.
And this is like it's so good.
Cool.
I love that one. Mm? Anyways, so it's...
Brie lives in a border town.
She does, and she lives in... I mean, I would say this is old. Like, clearly we're not talking cell phones. This is not a modern story. No. Like, even in the real world, is basically slavery. There's a lot of slavery going on here, or like indentures, I guess.
Exactly.
Because
it's like Cinderella times, because she has this like evil stepmother.
Yeah, and I felt like it was a little bit of a Cinderella story there with the evil step siblings and all of this and that, but it's basically you're indentured, so you will sell yourself to a contract with the basic idea that you will be able to pay your way out of it, but you cannot. It's very Six of Crows, like this happens in Six of Crows with Inesh when she gets sold into the menagerie. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how much she works, because she gets charged for room and board, so she will always own more than she makes, kind of thing.
So they own you.
It's essentially slavery. But they call it like a contract that you're paying off, kind of thing.
Right.
And she's with her sister. I can't remember what her sister's name is now, but she's with her sister anyways. And there's this...
Sister's not really that big a part of the story, even though that's why she makes decisions.
Yeah. And there's this mage's apprentice boy that she really likes. She calls him... Sebastian.
But his name is not Sebastian.
Out it's not his actual name. Right. We'll find that out later.
No, she calls him Bash.
Bash. Yeah, but it's Sebastian.
Yeah.
And she really hates fairy, and she hates the fae, and this is because she lost her mother to the fae. Her mom went to live in fairy for some reason. It's unclear in the beginning, and that's the reason why they're struggling, why they had to sell themselves into these contracts, and this woman they live with, she's taking them in, she's like their aunt or something like that, but she's not really caring for them. And then there's an announcement that the Sealy Prince is going to choose a bride, so there's a big party, and she's like, fuck no, I'm not going to fairy.
But her sister is like, I'll do it.
Like, I'll marry this prince. Yeah, this is great. I want to go to fairy.
Let's see what happens. And Bash is... white-haired?
Yeah.
Silver hair?
Yeah. Honestly, we exchanged some fan art of this. There's some interesting looking fan art online if you search for this, where Bash is very much not good looking, but he's described as being very good looking in this. And he's 21, Bash. But anyways, she goes to this party, she gets help in the line to get in because she's not dressed for it, and I don't know why she has to go. I think she has to go because her sister's been taken.
Yeah.
Her sister gets taken, so she's like, I need to go and find her and rescue her. So she goes, and then when she's there, she dances with this mystery man in the crowds, and
he's dark-haired with the silver eyes.
With silver eyes, yeah. And he pulls her out of danger when she gets stuck, because we all know the rules of fairy. If you start dancing, you cannot stop until someone pulls you out, and you should never eat or drink anything. And if we don't know these rules, we should all learn them, because if we accidentally fall into fairy, it's important to know. Don't freaking eat or drink
Don't drink
anything.
fairy wine. This is like the number one thing.
And don't start dancing unless you have someone to pull you back out, because you will dance until your feet bleed and your feet fall off, basically. You will keep dancing on the stumps of your legs because you will not be able to stop. Unless you got rowan berries around your neck and dirt in your pocket and salt on your food and all of this and that.
First thing to do when we fall into
rowan
fae,
berries.
We need to go find rowan berries.
Yeah.
Good to know.
We learned that from Cruel Prince and these other things. Anyways, so...
she's dancing with the silver-eyed, dark-haired, handsome boy.
And then she tumbles through this closet that she found, and she ends up in the Unseelie court with the king.
Yeah.
Who's not the actual king because he can't sit on the throne because you need to be of Queen Mab's blood to sit on the throne, but he's the ruler.
Or accepted, because you need to have the crown and the crown's power in order to sit on.
And you have to be of Queen Mab's blood.
Or accepted by?
No, you need to be of.
Okay.
Of her blood.
Why did he think he was going to be able to be the king then?
Because I guess he is of Mab's blood on some whatever...
Oberon's. Yeah, okay.
On some branch somewhere or another, but he doesn't have the crown. The crown is missing.
Yes, the crown is missing.
And it turns out that this king, and I kept mixing him up. There was a couple of names that I kept mixing up all the time, and where I was like, Finn's dad and Oberon, like I kept mixing them up. Like, who was Finn's?
Finn's dad is the current king, and then Bash's dad is Oberon.
Okay. Exactly. So I keep mixing that up.
Wait. No. Both are... They have the same dad.
No, they don't.
No, you're right, they don't.
They don't. But I kept mixing these two up, and it was like confusing for me. It was Oberon and whatever the other one was called, and I could never remember. And,
right, they have different moms, but they're...
And I was like...
But they're
cousins.
Wait, no, they're not cousins, they're brothers.
Oh, they are brothers.
So their dad is both Oberon. Their dad's both Oberon.
Okay, but what's the king then? Because the king is not
the king is Oberon's brother.
Yeah, what was his name then?
So this is...
We all forget.
But, I mean, who cares? His name was, like, Morpheus or some, like, evil man name.
Anyways, I kept mixing them up to the point where I'm in the book going, like, but who was... Oh, no, it was... Oh, I forgot. Okay, I'm getting back on track. You know, like, every time I read it, I was like, is this or this?
Okay, we're getting off topic a little bit here. So
there's a king who's not Oberon, because Oberon is the dad of Finn and Bash. Yes. And Bash, it turns out... No, so the king tells Bree that she needs to get back 3 artifacts that was taken from the Unseelie court by the Seelie Queen when she had a relationship with Oberon.
Yes.
Because and that relationship produced the current son of the Seelie Queen, which turns out in a massive twist to be Bash.
Yes.
And his name is Ronan.
His name is Ronan, not even Bash, but she still calls him Bash.
She calls him Bash.
Whole time.
All of these names are very confusing. I was very confused with the names a lot of the times. I have to say, it was too many names.
Also, I know a couple Sebastians, and I don't know a single one of them that's called Bash. So that was a little bit of a cute nickname. But, so she has a very, very big crush on Bash, and before he goes into Fae to find a wife, which she's there now, he kisses her.
Yeah. And she's like, whoop, there's hope.
Yeah. So she goes in, and then she sees that he's the prince.
And then she gets pissed off.
She gets pissed, but she's also there to try to find the artifacts to get her sister back. So she's lying and he's lying, and now starts all of the betraying.
Yeah.
There's just so much betrayal. First book is like, hi, what's your name?
Don't know.
But I'm about to betray you.
We're going to be betraying each other, both of us. We're going to make promises we cannot keep, and we're going to be betraying each other. It's going to be great. So, yeah, all of these stories are just betrayal, betrayal, betrayal. Everyone betrays everyone. Everyone lies to everyone.
Yes.
And this woman that Bree met in the line when she was getting into the castle, she turns out to be the friend and some kind of army member or whatever of Finn's plight to take back the Unseelie court, because he is allegedly the real heir for the Unseelie court. But her brother is the king of the Wild Fae. So there's a lot of
But she was the wife of Finn's brother.
Yes.
So she was the wife of the guy who was supposed to be the Unseelie king.
Yeah.
Before, because he was the older brother of Finn. But he died in battle. But she's actually a lesbian.
Yes.
In love with the wife of her brother.
With the Wild Fae's wife. Yes.
And
this is so convoluted.
Do you know what's do you know why I like?
We need a flowchart.
I love this so much because you know how I always ask, like, can we just please have
A visual chart of how are these people connected.
No.
I need it. I need it.
Can I please have love triangles in every book that I read? And this is like every character had a love triangle. Even the mom had a love triangle
there for a little bit too.
No, for sure. I like them. All of the moms, like her mom, Bree's mom had a love triangle because turns out that Bree's mom was in love with Oberon. Yes. And now it gets kind of incestual where you're like, oh.
Yeah.
So
but it was not her dad.
No. Then you're like, thank God she's not the daughter of Oberon. But so Oberon and her mom had a thing together. Let's start the succession here. Oberon, like 500 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, who knows?
It's a long freaking time ago.
Oberon has a baby named Finn and then his brother with one woman.
Yes.
And then she dies.
She must have died, yeah.
She dies, and he has a tryst or a love affair.
But this love affair is so much later because Bash / Ronan is only 21 years old, whereas Finn is like a couple hundreds at least.
But so he has a tryst with Bash's mom, but then
who's the Seelie Queen, and this is before she comes into power, so she really has not been in power for very long because if they're having a relationship where Bash / Ronan is only 21 years old, and she's only been queen for about maybe a little longer because Bash doesn't know that Oberon. He knows that Oberon is his dad.
He does.
But she was married to someone, and is he around anymore? He's not, right?
No, she's a single evil woman. So first Oberon has Finn and his brother. Finn's brother dies. Then Oberon gets with Bash's mom, who's Bash's 21 years old. And then he goes to the human land and has instant love with Bree's mom before Bree's born. And that's like...
We're talking a 4-year gap here.
Very soon. Yeah, but that's 4 years until Bree is born.
Yeah, but...
So Bree's mom has to have left Oberon, found, the guy, married him, and then had Bree. Yeah. So really, was it that, of a love?
Yeah, but she doesn't leave Oberon. This is the whole thing. Oberon sacrifices himself because the only way he can pass on the crown, which is what he does to Bree, is for him to die. So he sacrifices himself.
Well, okay, so this is
her life.
But wait.
But this happens later.
Yeah, but listen. So they've broken up. Bree's mom has a husband now and 2 daughters.
Yes.
Bree is one of the daughters. Is another daughter we don't remember the name.
I shall Google this while you explain this difficult topic.
So what happens is their house goes on fire. Mm-hmm. And Bree does hero stuff and tries to get the sister out. She's 11 or 12 years old at this point, Bree, which means that her sister is 2 years younger than her, let's say 10. So she goes back into the fire and everyone's like, don't go back into the fire. She goes back in, comes out. Everyone survives, but Bree is crisp. She's like toast. She's fully engulfed in flames and passed out from the smoke inhalation. So Bree's mom somehow, don't know how, does a little yodeling over to the Fae world, and Oberon comes calling, and he says, I'm going to save your daughter, which really, he doesn't have too much stake in it, because it's her kid with somebody else, but whatever, I will get past that and just follow the whole love. I will do everything for my love. So they have an endless love, apparently. And he decides that he is going to... Jazz is the sister. He's going to die to save Bree.
Yeah.
Which is not even his daughter, but is... No. We're accepting it. So he dies to save Bree, puts a crown on her head.
Yeah, because you can only pass the crown by dying.
So... Now she has a crown, but she can't see the crown, feel the crown. No one in the human world knows she has the crown, but she has the crown. Now everyone back in Fae knows she has the crown, can literally see it. It's a star crown?
Yeah, there were stars in her hair.
Stars in her hair.
Yeah.
And so she goes back, and the 2 sons of Oberon are really just trying to get the crown, but also they're in love with her.
Yeah. And Yeah, and everyone's in love with Gabriella. She suffers from what I like to call the super attractiveness of main character issue that I struggle with in books, where every single guy will just fall head over heels in love with her. And I was honestly, genuinely rooting for Bash/Ronan throughout most of this book, mainly because, yeah, he betrays her, but she fucking betrays him a lot too.
Yeah.
And he's like actually not that far off from her in age. He spent time with her in the real world. He got to know her. He protected her. And yeah, he does a bunch of shit, but all through it all, like, he genuinely fucking loves her and he tries to protect her at every fucking turn. Really. Whereas Finn is like 200 years her senior, which, you know, I hate when the age gap gets ridiculous like this. Like, I genuinely hate any age gap that's more than like 15 years is really my limit here.
I think that anything with an underage girl is icky.
Yeah.
And she's 17 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, 21 and 17, you can like maybe be like, okay, but 217.
Yeah, no, it's not good. It's really not good. And also from what we learn throughout this story, that like the queen of the Seelie court cursed the unseelie court by locking in their power, so their magic cannot regenerate, so they have to kill people in order to get a power boost. This is like a thing. And they call themselves like whatever. It's not even sacrifice. It's something like that. What do they call it? I can't remember. And 200 years ago or so, Finn falls in love with this human girl that's a changeling in fairyland, and they're in love. They're gonna live together forever. She's gonna stay human for a while. They're gonna have some babies, and then he's gonna give her like the potion of life, where she's gonna turn fae. And then when they do the bonding ceremony, he just steals her power and she dies, because he didn't even realize this is what had to happen. And then he gets magic.
Because he didn't know that the curse...
He didn't know.
He didn't know the curse had happened and it like came into effect that day.
But how does that work? Because that doesn't work then. Because if...
So the Seelie Queen puts on a curse.
But she must have been a queen for a long time then. They can't just be like 21 years. It must be longer. She must have been the queen, and she must have kept the...
That's fine. She could be the queen, because Oberon was the king of the Unseelie.
Yeah, so they must have kept on there beyond where she was a princess and stuff. But then she cursed Oberon while she was still sleeping with him.
Yeah.
It's confusing. Regardless. This is a thing, so in order for them to have magic, they need to sacrifice humans by bonding with them. And they get a little tattoo every time they bond with them, and they get a nice corpse, which Finn keeps in his trophy chamber, cemetery, cave.
Yeah.
Weird.
Fucking weird. And he visits it and goes to it all the time.
He thanks them for their sacrifice.
Because he's so old, he's covered in tattoos.
Yes.
Which means that he has been sacrificing humans for a very long time.
But it turns out that Bash is also covered in tattoos. He's
but we only...
away.
Exactly. We only learn about it later.
Because like all of these girls that he chose to be his potential wife. They're like, he's like keeps telling Bree that, I sent them back to the human world. But no. He did not. He fucked them, and then he stole
gross.
And honestly, then he killed them.
Bash grossed me out so much throughout this book, because he's so sweet to Bree. Like, oh my gosh, you're the only one. You're so special. There's like no one else but you. At one point, he asks her if she's a virgin, and then she's like, oh no, sorry, that was taken away a couple of years ago by some, like, I don't know, boy was cleaning houses with. And then she's like, are you a virgin? Or she asks him something like, have you ever done this before? And he goes, no. And then he's like, well, yeah, but not like this.
Not with anyone I love. So basically, he's just fucked them so he can steal their power.
And like, and after that conversation, he's like, gotta go have a meeting.
and he goes and he fucks and kills another girl.
And he fucks and kills a girl. That same minute. So, okay. We're going on so many tangents. Everyone listening to this podcast is thoroughly confused. Really
sorry, but it's because I am thoroughly confused, and I'm having a hard time keeping my thoughts in line here. So I think, let's stop with the recap, because we can just finish off by saying she will become the queen of the Unseelie and Seelie court. There will be a little encounter with Queen Mab in the underworld. There will be some murdering and some slaughtering. She'll have to unleash her inner shadow self, which is a wicked beast who just wants to fuck Finn most of the time. And she will break her, or he will sacrifice himself, Bash. Does he die? He does die. And she will...
He becomes human. He
becomes human. And she will inherit the throne from him, right? Whatever.
Yeah.
Something or other. Regardless, she's queen of everything.
She's not technically queen of everything. Bash is the...
No, but in the end, she's the queen of everything. Because he becomes human.
Yeah, but they're just keeping it a secret that he's human. And he's going to take this, like, potion and come back to being Fae.
No, but she's uniting the two courts. That's her whole thing. Because she's the only one who can. I'm fairly certain she fucking unites the courts in the end. There's a long way to go, and the Wild Fae would all be there. And the King of the Wild Fae also wants to sleep with her, even though he's probably, like, at least 500 years old at this point. So, let's all get it on with the 17-year-old girl here. It's great.
Yeah, yucky.
So, yucky. My thoughts on this book was, I did give it 4 stars, both book 1 and book 2. It was very entertaining. It felt fast when I was reading it, like I was sucked into the story. There was a lot of pining over different men and a lot of talking and thinking about betrayal in general and a lot of being betrayed. I was not rooting for Finn most of the time, not even towards the end. And you know me, I love my fucking inky black hair, but he just didn't do it for me. I found him to be...
silver eyes.
Possibly the silver eyes. I think it's more the cave with dead bodies and the fact that he was 1,000,000 fucking years old. Like these were my biggest struggles.
Honestly, the second we met Finn, I was like, throw this Bash away. No, when Bash decided to sleep with this other girl.
Yeah.
And she could see, because Bree could walk through walls. Bree has lots of different powers. So she goes and spies because no one can see her. And she sees him sleeping with a girl. And then he's like, oh, but I love you. I'll do anything for you. It's like, really? You didn't even take 2 seconds to stay with me. You went to go and sleep with that girl. It's very weird decision making. So I hated him. Hated him for that. He left her. Waiting. She was like, let's do this. Let's have sex. And he's like, oh, sorry, I got a meeting. I got to go have sex with somebody else.
He had to go and refill his magic supplies. No, magic stores. But I think what I really did not like, I did not like the love interest in general in this book. I didn't think she should end up with either one of them. I think she should have been, free and focused on herself or something like that.
Yeah, she's 17. She technically did not need to settle down and have a husband, but they did, right? They're together, they're married and everything. They're bonded and married and
it turns out that he's her
mate.
But it's not mate. It's
no, they call it something
tethered mate or something like that. But tethered because she can draw power from him,
and he can draw from her.
Yeah, but it's mostly from... Before they're bonded, only she can draw power from him, and it does not go the other way.
No.
But I think...
But it had... This book had everything. So what I wanted to talk about was, the parallels that people draw to these other books. Mm-hmm. I don't think that it was very much like The Cruel Prince or A Court of Thorns and Roses, but there was some aspects that were similar. But I think what this book did was it gave you what everyone's favorite stuff was of all the other books. Of course, it was more PG than Sarah J. Maas's books.
But I think what it does is the parallels to The Cruel Prince is really her rise to power. But I think they took away... I think The Cruel Prince does it better because in The Cruel Prince, Jude does not become fairy. She's the human queen, which is... And she does it from just her strength and her grit and her determination. And basically, she's politically savvy, and this is how she manages to get the power and actually hold on to it. Yeah. Whereas Bree... She becomes Fae, fairly immediately in the book, in book 1, because she bonds with Bash, and the bonding kills her, and the crown gets transferred to him.
She takes a potion that makes her Fae.
But then he feeds her the potion that makes her Fae, and then this is basically what his mom gets pissed off about, because as long as she's alive, she's a threat to the kingdom. kind of thing. But so yeah, she becomes the queen, but she's like more of the reluctant queen. Whereas Jude in The Cruel Prince, she wants the fucking power. She wants to do this. She's like fully into it. Whereas Bree is like, no, if I could avoid this power, I think I would. I would like to go back to the human world and sit in my basement and steal shit from rich people. I don't know, but this is what she does, right? She's not really interested in the power. So I think that's the parallel that people draw, but I think it's kind of not really the same.
And I suppose what they're drawing from Sarah J. Maas is this whole love triangle, right? And then also that she turns fae.
And also that she has like all of the power, like she's more powerful than anyone else, and she
doesn't know what to do.
Even
with it.
When she was human, she had magic, and then when she becomes fae, it becomes bigger, and she can.
And she was with like this one guy, but then she's actually mated to the other one, and she sort of feels it, but doesn't know what that even means. And then she only like gets it in book 2.
Yeah. So I mean, there are parallels. I think this book did it okay. It was not the best book I've ever read, but it was also highly pleasant. Like, and an enjoyable read.
That's what I mean.
I did not hate Bree, which is rare for me. I usually hate a lot
all the main characters.
And I think the betrayal left, right, and center. The fact that no one was fully. Like, it was very predictable, though. Like, I predicted a lot of the story before it happened.
Yeah.
Like, I wrote to you when I was, like, chapter 3. I'm like, well, he's going to be this, and this person's going to... And the guy who betrays, like, Ronan Bash, his best friend, the knight, like, that he betrays them. Yeah. At the end, like, I saw that one coming from, a way early.
He drugged her. You knew it was him that drugged her.
You knew it was him that drugged her and tried to get her to bond with him immediately there at the party and stuff. Like, he was shady. So, it was very predictable in that. Like, if you read these kinds of books, it was easy to figure out where this was going to be. We knew she was going to end up with Finn in the end. It took a lot of love struggle, which is rare. Like, more struggle, I think, than Feyre.
What? She went through, like, a deep, deep depression. Almost died.
But she was not struggling that much in the choice between them. Because when she meets Rhys,
she hated Rhys.
Yeah, but...
She hated him for so long and only gave in. Like, when she, like, got mentally healthy again, she liked him.
Yeah, but she's not really that torn between these two men. Like, she's with the one first, and then she's with the other.
And she's with the other,
She's not, like, actually
going
torn
back and
between
forth.
them.
No.
Whereas Bree is very much
It was a proper love triangle.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the differences there.
I really loved all the love triangles. I love the intertwining, relationships, and that it was also, like, not just heterosexual too, and, like, everyone was pretty much bi. I loved all of those stories.
No, that was so good. And I think even, like, I like the artifacts. Like, she gets this mirror that can show her, but it shows her lies. I like these kind of, like, I like my unreliable narrator, where it's like, you can't trust what you see. And I think this goes very well into fairy, like, because fae are tricky. And I think this is what a lot of books that write about the fae, they only write about them as being beautiful. And they miss, like, the cruelty, the trickster part of fae. I did not appreciate that the fae could lie freely in this one, which I think is, if there's one rule that you need to follow when it comes to fae, is that they cannot lie. It's like vampires need to drink blood. Yeah. Fae need to not be able to lie.
That's
true. It's like they're
That's why they're tricky, because they have to try to get around lying.
It's like they're defining quality, kind of what makes a fairy. It's the fact that they cannot lie, kind of thing. And here they could lie, because everyone fucking lied to her. They lied to her all the fucking time. So there's lies, you get a lie.
You get a lie. You get betrayed, and you get betrayed. But overall, super great book. Yeah. I loved listening to it, and I would recommend it for sure.
I would also recommend it. So if you want a fun, and we talked about this too before we started recording, some people think that this could have been a trilogy rather than a duology, because it can feel rushed in places. But I genuinely think it's better as a duology, and I think I personally prefer duologies always, because I find that trilogies have our journey book in the middle. where the characters just need to get from A to B, but nothing actually gets resolved. And I hate those.
But do you know what they do in book 2, which we didn't really get in this book, is that they train for their powers, right?
Yeah.
So they like learn how to use them, and then it gives you a little bit more explanation on what that is. And in this book, it was like she could walk through walls, she could turn herself into like invisible, and then she gets more powers and all the powers, and then she can shadow an entire castle, and all of the people make them go black into a nightmare. And it's like, where did this? I would have like more explanation of the power.
Fair enough, but also it does explain that she's very emotionally attached to her power and she just throws it out. So I think it makes sense the way that they explain it, because she just like, she gets this feeling and she's like, whoa! And then she just pulls it out and blankets everything.
But I mean, in a journey book, that's where you get that info. Yeah. So we didn't have that in this book, which you didn't care about, and I also didn't care about. But I'm just saying it could have been there. Yeah. There could have been 3 books.
But I do prefer duologies, and I prefer duologies. They can be a little bit longer, like Six of Crows, Crooked Kingdom are really like heavy books.
Yeah.
But it's a duology, and I like that.
Yeah,
because
that also was fine.
I prefer when there's just 2 books and done, rather than Shadow and Bone, where the middle book is... I mean, what's the fuck is her story? She just gets kidnapped by random people. She gets kidnapped by a different group in every book.
And then she makes plans, and then the plans never work. Like, he's always there to, like, right before. He's like, ta-da! And she's like, oh, man, we just spent, like, 50 pages making this plan.
Like, got foiled, like, before we even had time to start it. Yeah, for sure.
But that being said, books like the gold books that we like, well, it's not Guild and Glint and Gleam. I would have preferred that they were just 3 and not now 5. Yeah, you know what I mean? Honestly, like, you like duologies, but I like trilogies. But I don't need there to be 5. Like Crush and Crave and everything. Like, we don't need
how
5,
Raven
6,
Kennedy
7.
is ruining my life by ruining this story.
I know.
And honestly, we have another Tracy Wolf book coming out, don't we?
How many are there going to be?
I don't know, but it's too many.
Too many. And stop at 3 and then give us a novella if you really want to.
Please keep it a novella, not a 600-page random story that introduces a new world with new people that we don't care about.
Or what you could do is the way that Crooked Kingdom, that whole thing happened too. Not Crooked Kingdom, the Six of Crows. Yeah, Crooked Kingdom, Six of Crows. Yeah. But they had Shadow and Bone, and then they had Six of Crows, and then they have Rule of Wolves.
Yeah, in duologies.
And like they're in the same world.
Yeah, this is fine. Following different people, where you get like guest appearances of all the people you loved before. You're like, woohoo, Cass is here.
So like play around with that instead of making it a 5-book one story.
And honestly, I think we've heard enough from Grace. I don't think we need to hear any more from Grace.
I'm going to need to read this book because I cannot listen to that narrator for a single second.
I could read this book.
No, I can
imagine.
But you know how much you could skip over? You could just like bloop 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 monologue bloop bloop her recapping bloop bloop. Already know it would be so fast.
I'm gonna listen to it at 2.5 speed. It was super
5
fast.
speed. It's like
so yeah. Now, we've heard enough from Grace, but apparently she's not done talking. So there's going to be more Grace.
Okay, stay tuned for that ranting episode. And in the meantime... We can
pre-rant. We're already pre-ranting now. We haven't even gotten the book yet, and we're pre-ranting. Anyways, until then, go out and read Hollow Vows and Twisted Bonds. And
Lexi Ryan.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerrica and Leah Sanfo. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erase Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.